All right. Maximilien Roy, Max, how's it going, man?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Awesome. It's good to see you.
Good to see you as well. It's been a little while.
It has been a while, yes. You look good.
Well, so do you.
I know you're
Is
lying.
this a date or something? It's,
You're trying to be polite, but it's okay. Thanks anyway.
I'm getting nervous now.
It has been a while. First of all, how's your wife?
My wife's doing great.
Alex.
She's still working in politics. She's quite busy. She just went back to work because we had a kid 6 months ago.
Yeah, congrats.
So thank you, little boy. So she took the first 6 months. I'm taking the second 6 months of the entire year with the kid. Obviously, I'm taking a little break today to be with you.
Yeah, and I appreciate it. I know you're a very busy man.
No worries.
6 months now, the little one.
Yeah, 6 months and a week now.
How is it?
It changes a life. I mean, I've heard so many comments before becoming a dad. People used to tell me, it's going to change your life. And at one point you're like, yeah, whatever. Sure. Everyone has kids at one point in their life.
I think everybody thinks like that. And then they realize, man, those things are true.
That's right. And I still remember the second he was born, and I saw my life like, okay, this isn't the same thing at all. It really changes a life.
For sure.
Yep.
For sure. It changes in the sense that this is my experience, at least having kids. Forget about the fact that you're happy and your wife. That's normal. I think we can understand that. What I found amazing, which I wasn't expecting at all, was to see the result it had in the people around us, like my parents and my in-laws, and just to see them experiencing everything over again.
Yeah.
It was fantastic. And we lived it again with the second kid. It's just crazy to see the happiness these things bring to everyone.
You're totally right about the happiness part of it. The other thing, too, is that any decision I make in my life now, there's always a little second of, wait, but how does that affect my kid now?
Exactly.
Which I didn't have before. I was like, I'm just going to do it. But now I have to think twice.
You got to think twice.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, it's the new life. But I'm happy for you, man.
Well, thanks.
I'm happy for you. And we haven't seen each other in a very long time. You've been busy with your stuff, and we were busy with the whole political scene. We met. Just to go back a little bit. I think we met the first time when you came into the party. You were doing communications. I wasn't very much in contact with the party, so I don't think we dealt too much with each other. But then we started working closer together when you took the lead at the writing office of our very own Right Honorable Prime Minister.
That's right. We're lucky enough to work our two writings, the federal and the provincial one, were crossing. So that's how we really actually met. Because I remember working for the provincial Liberals, but when you're working at the headquarters, you don't get to see what's really happening on the ground.
On the ground, yeah.
But now that I was working in the Prime Minister's writing office, that was the moment when we started working together. And I got to say, you guys were really close to the people on the ground. So wherever I would go and meet with the citizens, they would always talk to me about, this is what Jerry is doing, this is what his team is doing. So that's how I really got to know what you guys were doing.
Look, we were there for a very long time, right? So we had the opportunity to build some steady relationships there on the ground. But tell me about you. I mean, how did you that transition from the partisan to more of the service and the representation for the citizens?
I think it was a very important moment in my life. When you do politics, everyone has in mind working in either Quebec City or Ottawa, and if you're really lucky, Washington. Yeah. And you think you're going to be in that bubble and you're going to change the world at that precise location. Truth is, you're the most helpful when you're in the writing, when you get to see people.
I agree.
Real challenges every day. And if I hadn't been on the ground at that point, I don't think I would have been that good or as humble as I can get working in politics in Ottawa.
It does change you. It changes you because, like you said, you're on the ground. And it's fine working on the hill, but working on the hill is much more, what this show is about, right? The backstage, all the preparation, everything that goes into policy and all that stuff. But the writing office is, first of all, that's what maintains your seat, right? So the work that is done there is also the work that will depend on whether or not you maintain the seat, because it's the relationships and it's what you have to prove, right? What you have to show. He wasn't yet prime minister, I think.
No, he had just run to be the leader. So once I got there, he was already a leader, but it was just before the election, the 2015 election.
And you left, I think, right before.
A little bit before, because I ran for a nomination in the riding, which I didn't win.
Right.
So
Yeah. I forgot about that.
yeah, that was a nice experience as well. In my hometown in Stansted.
In the Eastern Townships.
Eastern Townships, in Compton, Stansted is the names of the riding.
So you're a townships boy.
I am.
You grew up on the farm.
I grew up on a farm, worked 8 years on a farm before actually jumping in politics.
What kind of farm?
So it's a family farm. So there are 12 kids. I was their cousin. I was the 13th one.
Wait, you have 12 siblings?
My cousins.
Oh, cousins. Okay, I missed that. Okay.
The same family. They have their 12 kids. I was the 13th one. So they have to do everything, right? You have a farm. You have to be able to work in any conditions. Both the fields, they have about 1,000 cows now.
Oh wow!
It's a big farm.
Okay.
So I've touched everything. In the joke when I got into politics, that's you used to spread shit when you were working on the farm, but
I've dealt with shit before.
You're doing the same thing now once you're in politics.
It's I have a cousin that lives out in Bedford, and one thing for sure, I don't know how people live there, but that's just my take, right? Because I'm a city guy. But every time we have to drive there, it's just in my mind. It's just misery. I'm like, oh God. But then again, I start understanding almost how other people feel when they come to my house, because now I'm no longer on the island. So I kind of understand it. But here's what I'm going to tell you, because I've gotten to meet a lot of their friends and their family over there. They're very proud people, and they're very, very, very hardworking people.
They are.
And the other thing that I also, because I always thought in the back of my mind, the people living in the townships or in the regions, their ultimate dream would be to leave and come into Montreal, to come to the big city. And I realized that that's not true. People are very happy and they're very proud of what they're doing, and they love the region, and they love staying and working and contributing to whatever they're doing.
It's really the quality of life you have over there. I mean, I love living in the city, but it's not the same thing. You don't stress in the morning when you live in the Eastern Townships about going to work, being stuck in traffic. You don't live that at all.
Well, I would hope so, because my cousin has 5 kids, so that's another issue that I don't understand. But
that's another thing for sure.
No, but it's aligned to that. There's literally less stress than what we live here.
Absolutely. Your ambition is different. I wouldn't say it's lesser. It's really just different.
Yeah.
You can build a business like my cousin's, 1,000 cows. You don't start with 1,000 cows. You start with a few of them, and then you build it. So you can do it. It's really, you can choose your own pace, and you don't have the pressure that you feel when you're in the city.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
So Justin Trudeau's office, you take over, and then you run federally. You lose the campaign, and then you go into the private sector.
Yep, exactly. That's what I did. Actually, I went to the private sector before, because I didn't want to. I didn't want it to look like I was.
You went from one to the other. Okay, I understand. Yeah.
I didn't want to be from the Prime Minister's office going to run in a riding and say, you know what, I'm their chosen one. So I left before. I found a job in the private sector, in a big PR firm here in Montreal.
And how was that?
Very eye-opening.
Yeah.
You see, big PR firms, what's really cool about them is that you touch so many different files. You're always living on the edge. It's really, really interesting. If you ask me if I would do it again at that time of my life, for sure. And now, no way.
Well, now that you're a father and family is in the back of your mind,
That's right.
It's insane that very few people understand, and I'm going to go back into politics in general, because obviously the big PR firms that do, obviously public relations and government relations, you're around, the same. There's that same political aura, right? People don't understand the amount of work that goes into the work that we've done. Yeah. People just think, you go around, shake hands, kiss babies, and then you come around every 4 years. There's so much more that people don't understand, or they don't. And I understand that they don't see it, right? Because it's not their everyday life. But it's just insane the amount of hours that are put in this work.
For sure, and it's not as concrete as many other jobs. I mean, you don't see the thing you're cleaning. You don't see the results the next day.
Exactly.
It's only you have to build it. The stars don't align themselves naturally. You have to work it, make sure and find the right timing to make it happen. and the right angle to do it as well.
Which is why it's so incredibly difficult to pick up and leave when you're working in politics. First of all, it's a drug, so it just
It is.
It pulls you in. But at the same time, like you said, you're working on so many different things that the results will only be obvious in 1, 2, maybe 3 years.
Exactly.
You're thinking long term, and you can't just pick up and leave because you have things pending that nobody either knows what you're doing, or there's so many people involved that you don't want to leave anyone hanging. And a lot of people used to ask me, "What do you do?" Like, I spent 11 years, but even before that, people were like, "What are you doing? Why do you work so much? Like, what are these hours? Weekends at 8 p.m. What are you doing?" And it's difficult to explain to someone that this is what it takes, right?
Right. It is hard. It's once the way I did it, I would have a list of the things I wanted to accomplish before leaving, and that list, if you don't stop it, it goes on and on. It never, ever stops. So at one point, you just have to say, "These are my priorities," and it doesn't take one day, as you say. It might take 2, 3 years before it happens, but you have to make sure that you always keep that goal in mind and that you slowly start to build a narrative around it. You need to find the right ally to make it happen. You need to find connections or get to know the right people. You work in politics, so many different files. For instance, immigration.
Yeah.
I was in charge of immigration at the office, but I know if you don't have the right contact, the person can really explain why the file is not going forward. It can be quite complicated, and you're not being very helpful to the citizen.
Exactly. And I don't believe that people are irreplaceable, but it's very difficult to replace someone that leaves in politics, especially after a long period where they've developed their network, they've created the relationships, they've worked on complex files, and to just find someone that will pick it up from one day to the next, it's practically impossible, I think. Which is the big difference, I think, from that and the private sector, where I'm thinking about of huge corporations where, okay, come in, these are your tasks, and go.
Exactly, because the personality has a lot to do with how you were talking about shaking hands. It's an art. You don't just learn on a day how to make it happen, how to build a trust with someone. So it really does take time. So you're right. You cannot just leave and bring in someone new to replace you. That's for sure.
I love talking with people that either work in politics or worked in politics, and much more talking to people that worked in politics, so I can see now in retrospect how they think. What was it for you that pushed you or motivated you or got you interested to come into politics?
To be quite frank, when I was younger, I was a disenfranchised youth. I used to listen to a lot of punk rock music. I used to have a big mohawk, different colors back in the days.
Wow.
I knew
we want pictures. That's what we want.
You won't get any of them. I used to think there are so many different things you can do to make this world better. Yeah. And I know it's a bit cliche, but truth is, you go into politics for that, then you learn how complicated it is to change things. Yeah. But you have the foundation of why you get involved should always be because you want to change things for the better.
Mm-hmm. You got involved at a university level from
Absolutely. My first experience was in 2008, working on a campaign for William Hogg, who was a local candidate back then in Compton Stansted. That's how I started, just volunteering and slowly getting to know more people working in politics and getting closer to them, understanding their world first, because you don't want to jump from one day to the next into politics. You want to learn to see if you like it, because as you said, it's a drug. So you better make sure that
pick the right one.
That's right. The one that really suits you.
Get addicted to the right one.
That's right.
And that led you obviously to all the positions. Finally, you ended up working in cabinet in Ottawa. Yeah, that's what I want to know.
I worked for Minister Morneau, the Minister of Finance, for 3 years. Incredible experience. Mm-hmm. Yeah, really. I don't know. There's so many things I could say. So, is there something specific you want to talk about?
Look, this is where, and it's interesting that I'm happy that you accepted to come on, because many people that are involved in politics, they're either involved at a partisan level, either at a local, service representation level, or they want the big jobs and they go to cabinet because of the exposure and because of whatever status they think that brings them. But you've done all three. And the interesting thing for me is to know obviously that transition from one to the other and the experiences that you had in dealing with those different atmospheres.
Absolutely. Actually, I wouldn't have been good at that last job if I hadn't had the experience before, working underground. So many different things come your way in terms of decision making, and I don't make the decisions. I influence the decision.
Yeah.
Whenever I would get something on my desk telling me, okay, this is an issue, this is what we recommend should be done, my first angle would always be, how would people react, like in the streets of Montreal? Would they think that this is the right thing to do? That's how you really, my background really helped me making better decisions at that point. Because when you work in a big department like Finance Canada, they have all the necessary staff to do all the calculations for any file, making sure that these are the prospects on this file. What they may lack is that openness or understanding of what's really happening on the ground.
Well, it's bureaucracy. That's what it is. It's bureaucratic. And that's a big difference, right? When you're working at the writing office, an issue comes up and you have to do everything. Because you're 3, 4, maybe 5 staffers at most?
Yeah. Absolutely.
At a cabinet, you pick up the phone. There's someone that, okay, get me this information or do this for me.
Absolutely.
So it's much more of, management or controlling.
It is. And again, when you own the file when you work in a writing office, so you know the person, you're the one that is going to be helping that person. It's not as personal once you get into cabinet, because the decisions are about big issues that will affect people, yes, but not, you couldn't put a name on that specific file.
It's at a larger scale.
It is.
What files were you responsible for?
Oh, it switched so many times, but I did public safety, anything that has to do with First Nations. I did health. I did, what else did I do? Culture. I did so many different files. Plus, we had the angle of different provinces. So I would be in charge of Quebec, the prairies in the north.
Okay.
So that would keep me busy, making sure that whatever decision we take, we both look on the policy file, but also on a geographical lens perspective. Yeah.
You're probably not the right person there, but Minister Morneau has taken a lot of heat. Well, it's not only him, but in general, the government for dipping the country in a deficit of, where are we now, 70 billion?
Yeah, something like that. Well, it's 12 billion about a year for 4 years. So it's, you own a house. Did you pay cash or did you actually borrow money?
No, I borrowed money. But if I had gotten a house that was almost paid off, I'm not so sure if I were going to get more debt. You understand?
Sure, but if your house was fully paid off, but there were cracks in the walls.
Yeah.
Like infrastructure. Like just look, the Champlain Bridge.
Yeah.
It needed to be built. And that's not the only thing. Just look in Montreal, the streets.
It's horrible.
It's horrible.
Yeah.
So you need to put money. And like there's been a lack of money in infrastructure for so long. It was time to put money there. I understand people are telling the government, you should wait until there's a crisis before you start putting the money. Truth is, what has been shown for many, many, many different times is that the moment there's a crisis and you start putting money, by the time the money gets on the ground, it's too late. There's no effect.
Yeah.
So what you want to do is make sure that there's some money and there's always a basis.
I don't have an issue with being proactive, and I think that's the right attitude, I think, with anything. But who was I talking to recently? I can't remember. They because the federal government is lining up for a campaign soon, and they're looking back at everything and they're thinking, Justin, man, he promised a very small deficit, maximum 10 billion or something like that,
right?
And then we would balance the books for 2019 for the election, and we're so off from that. It's ridiculous. It's crazy.
Yes, and if someone wants to raise that point, I think it's a legitimate point. Yeah. You can say that for you the deficit is too high. Personally, I don't think so. I think like if you look at the debt GDP ratio, we're doing so well compared to any other country in the world, and the impact it has on, first of all, reducing poverty in Canada. The cost of poverty is extreme. So whenever you reduce the amount of poverty, it really helps the country. Mm-hmm. So for me, it was a good investment. The question is, some people see it as a waste, some people see it as an investment. I see it as an investment. If someone wants to call it a waste, fine, mm-hmm. but tell me where you're going to cut.
No, absolutely. See, this is the other thing that people have a hard time understanding, that we're very considerably lucky in Canada to have everything that we have, right? And it's difficult for people to understand that these things aren't free. We may be getting them, quote unquote, for free, mm-hmm. but it costs money. People have to pay for these things. And I remember it was Gaëtan Barrette, the former provincial minister of health. We were campaigning together, and he was telling people, and I loved how he would put it. He was saying, listen, what do you want? Nothing is impossible. We can do anything you want. Whatever you want. Just tell us what you want, and it's not impossible. We can have anything you want.
Right.
It's a question about money. We'll do it. Don't worry about it. Problem is that we're limited in the expenses, so we're going to have to figure out where we're going to cut. That's what you said before.
Yeah.
And the way he would put it, it sounds so simple, yet it's true that, look, it's the government. You can afford whatever you want, and everything comes at a cost.
Absolutely.
So it's just balancing. I don't want to say right and wrong, because I don't think there's right and wrong. It's just
finding that equilibrium,
Yeah.
that balance. You're right. I mean, in a perfect world, we would get all our infrastructures and we wouldn't pay for it. But it doesn't work. You need to either put more money in infrastructure or assume that your infrastructure are going to go down or are going to be getting older and not as good.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to make that choice. And where is the exact location of the equilibrium? There's no real answer to that. I mean,
at the same time, I think what people are mostly, I don't want to say concerned, but they're realizing that, Justin came into power in 2015. And that was, I think, considering everything that the world had gone through economically, he came in at the very end of, quote unquote, crisis, let's call it, because I don't think we lived a big crisis, but I think it's fair to say that is all due to the very careful and diligent governance that the Conservatives had before him in terms of the economy. I think you have to give that to Harper in terms of managing the finances, and at a time where really the crisis had hit the peak, right? When you have your neighbors to the south with bailout packages, and in Europe the same thing. The fact that we didn't really feel much in Canada was primarily because of that, and Jim Flaherty, who has been recognized for his genius, the guy. So Justin comes in at the very end of all that. So people are thinking, okay, look, we didn't feel anything. Things are going well. And here we are going back into that circle. So it comes back to what you said. But I just want to go to people's perception of things, that things are good. Why don't we just continue going this way rather than doing full circle and indebting ourselves again? You understand? So people have this, it's not a misconception. It's just their way of seeing things. And I think it's a very realistic way to think, right?
yeah, no, I get it. And I'll just go back a little bit. The reason why we didn't get hit that badly compared to other countries was really because our financial institutions, there's so many laws and they're well done. So that's really what helped us not being affected as much as the United States, where it's closer to the free market in terms of financial institutions, and they got hit harder because a few banks filed for bankruptcy. Yeah. So we didn't get that because the charts here in Canada are so much more demanding. So we got okay on this front. Flaherty, genius. I have nothing to say against him. And if you look at the expenses in terms of what happened under Conservatives and what happened next, what are the two big items? It was infrastructure when Justin came in, and it was Canada Child Benefit.
Yeah.
So these are the two big policy pieces that were brought forward. So yes, you're right. The country was on a good track. Now, it was at a point where either you continue to reduce your debt, or you start fixing a few issues that are latent, which the infrastructure problem was one, like it was recognized as one. Everything has to do with Canada Child Benefit and the anxiety of people, that was, in my mind, another issue that needed to be fixed. So I don't think any government can take full ownership of turning boats around. I mean, it's hardworking Canadians who actually do the job.
Yeah.
It's because people actually start working, they invest in their businesses, they hire more people. That's what really happens. You can only change a few laws. You can try to invest a bit more here and there, but it's very limited in terms of impact. But at that point, the policy was, do we change a few things in terms of infrastructure and poverty in Canada? And that was the angle. That's what got him elected, and that's what he did. So we can criticize him and say it's not the right direction. It's a fair criticism, but you have to choose at one point.
I'm not sure exactly when this episode is going to air, but we had a friend of mine on, and we're talking about politics as well. And for sure, what Justin has succeeded in doing is creating this image and garnering all this support. I think he completely revolutionized the Liberal Party. He brought it back. I don't want to say a cult, but there's just so much support. People are so enthusiastic about participating and taking action. And I have to give him credit for that, because from where the Liberal Party was before and where he's brought it, it's huge, huge. Having said that, it's crazy how things change, right, in politics, where, now we're talking about the whole SNC-Lavalin thing. And I want to take your take on it, because I personally think that it's a non-issue. And it's not because I'm a liberal. I try to see things very objectively all the time. But it's just crazy how, in my opinion, in terms of communications, I think they just dropped the ball.
I agree 100%. I think it was more of a communications issue more than anything else. There will always be a gray zone, because there's so many things happening when you're doing the sausage in government that you wouldn't understand, or you would, unless you're there physically, you wouldn't really know what really happened. Mm-hmm. And even if you were there, you would only get a portion of the way you see it. That's part of what governing really is about. But you're true in terms of communication. It wasn't good at all. It wasn't good at all. There were so many changes in the message that was sent at that point. So that was a big issue, and the big issue was that.
I don't want to diminish what happened. Like, what I mean by non-issue, I mean it's not a political crisis, in my opinion, but it is a big issue, big enough for the people in his cabinet to have seen what would have possibly come of it, right? Especially when there's an article in the Globe and Mail that kind of opened the whole can of worms. My reflex would have been, okay, wait, if there's a story on this, they probably know much more than what they wrote about. So why come out and hide certain details? Let's just full transparency. This is what we did. This is why we did it. There's jobs on the line, and we got to protect it. And what I said in the earlier episode with my friend was that I would have rather suggested, look, come out on the attack, say what happened, and put the spotlight on the opposition and pressure them into taking a position. Do you want to support the jobs? Do you want to support the headquarters or not? And turn the headline on them. Trying to hide, and then all this information kept coming out, and then, you came out and said, oh no, our Minister Rabel is a valued member of our ministerial cabinet, and then 24 hours later she resigns, and then you have to cover for that, and then your chief of staff, well, not your chief of staff, but your senior advisor resigned, and it's just a huge snowball effect created for nothing.
Right. Agreed. I agreed 100% in terms of how the issue was dealt with. Because yes, it is an issue. It was a communications issue more than anything else. I think more than the allegations of pressure whatsoever. Mm-hmm. It was very badly done. But you've worked in politics, and I'm sure you've heard a lot of things. How many crises a day you try to avoid in politics? The number is quite high.
And look, and it's also very easy to look back and say this is what should have happened, right? But
Monday morning coaching, right?
Yeah, I get that, right? And I'm not judging anyone here. It's just that an issue like that should have been, you should have seen this happen, right? Yeah. I mean, this is the PMO here. You should be able to kind of have a better analysis of these things. And again, I don't know when this episode is going to air and what will have happened to that story, but do you think this is an issue that can drag on into the elections and cause any problems?
I think the big issue at this point is really how does the government get all of his caucus together and make sure that they're all on the same.
That was my next question.
They have to be on the same message. They have to air their grievances within the party, because when you're into politics, and people always say that you shouldn't have key messages for all the caucus members. You're a team. It's like if you're going to go play hockey, but only a few people would get sticks, and the other ones, well, they have to
see. Look, I cannot. I don't know how it feels. I don't know what it is, because I worked at the provincial level where at maximum you have 75 people to manage versus Justin, who has 170?
184 at top, and then
ridiculous number of people to manage to control the message. You're dealing with people across the country that aren't always present there, so you can kind of see them face to face. Do you think there's already, I think, a rift being created between the Quebec caucus and the rest of English Canada? How do you think that's going to play out?
I don't think the rift is between the Quebec and the rest of the country. I think the big issue, and you mentioned it, there's so many people, 184 people, they all have ego. Not everyone who jumped on board to be a member of parliament back in the day knew exactly what it meant to be a member of parliament. I don't think a whole lot of people know what it means to be a member.
There's a lot of new
parliament.
faces, that's for sure, yeah.
That is for sure. And once you get in there, like, unless from day one it's very clear that these are the limits of what we want to do, this is what we want to achieve, and this is the process if you have any questions or issues. If you don't put that in place from day one, that's how you create issues in the long run. I think at this point, they need to look back at the process, make sure that all the MPs have a say in the decisions, and make sure that once a decision is made collectively, they stick to it.
Yeah.
And that could be an issue if they're not able to do that within the next few months. No one wants to vote for a party who doesn't seem to know where
to have cohesion. Yeah,
exactly.
I want to move on to what you're doing now.
Yeah.
Before we get on to that, actually, no. Let's talk about what you're doing now, and I want to ask you more of a political question after. Regroupement des jeunes chambres du commerce du Québec, for the Anglophones listening, that's kind of like a Quebec Association of Youth Chambers of Commerce.
That's correct, yep.
Tell me a little bit about it. What is it?
So I started as a CEO there in November. So we represent 43 young chambers of commerce all across Quebec, 12,000 entrepreneurs and young professionals. We have three main objectives. Make sure that there's a good network in place, that people have resources. We want to make sure that the government understands what's happening in the ecosystem from this perspective of startups and people from between 18 and 40 years old, and finally help them go beyond borders, become international companies.
Okay.
These are the three things we're trying to achieve.
Well, for one, I'm glad that you're considering 40 still young.
Yep, it is. We're all young.
There's a question that I have because there's so many chambers of commerce, right? You have the Quebec Federation of Chambers of Commerce, then you have the bigger regional ones. Why is this necessary? Why do you think we need a youth chamber of commerce?
Two things. The FCCQ is doing a great job, and I'm not complaining about them. They're part of our chain, the way I see it. We have younger clubs for people who are still at school. We have clubs for there's the FCCQ who are there, yes, for all the businesses in Quebec. But at the end of the day, the way their mandate is shaped, it's really about basically bigger businesses more than anything else. Mm-hmm. We're more about smaller businesses. So that's the way we see it. And it's not a perfect rule in the sense that we do represent some bigger businesses and young professionals in bigger businesses. But the focus is different from there. And from our perspective, from our generation as well, the perspective is different. Like the FCCQ works a lot in the paradigm of unions versus business owners. We're more of how can we find a middle ground for both of them and work with there? Because SMEs, I mean, you can be the boss and you can be your own employee as well.
Yeah, exactly.
So you have to think about that. So that's why I think it's relevant for us to be there.
Is there any competition in the sense that the people, the members that come into the young chambers of commerce, nothing stops them from going to become members in other ones, right?
Right.
But do they want to, or do they just pick and choose? And they're like, oh, these guys, they're young, they're funner, better networking cocktails. Let's go here, and then you kind of take away members from the other ones.
Well, you know what? It's usually young chambers are cheaper, so usually it's an add-on to other chambers of commerce, or sometimes it's the first step or a step in between, like school clubs to the chamber of commerce, where they know they'll have people in their own from their own age present at the event. So. Competition, no. Is there some overlap? Obviously, there is a lot. But the bigger issue in general is really making sure that there's so many different. We're bombarded every day with ads, with events. If you wanted to, you could spend your entire day just going from one event to the other without ever working. So we have to stay relevant. That's part of my job to make sure that we stay relevant.
Give me a little bit of the diversity of the people, the companies that are represented there.
From very small ones that self-employed people to very big corporations. On my board of directors, I have Vincent Thériault, who's the co-founder of Sur Mesure, the suits.
Yeah.
So nice guy. I have people from Canada Steamships Line, people from Desjardins, from Banque Nationale, and then we go to very small businesses and some startups. I'm thinking about André on my board, who started a company named Solugen. It's in the agricultural area. It's a very good product they're creating. So we touch a whole lot of people, different industries all across Quebec.
We're going to talk about the industries a bit later because there's some pressing questions that we have, especially with the business and the economy landscapes completely transforming. But in the regions, tell me, are people interested? Are they mobilizing, or is it mostly like the big cities, Montreal, Laval, Quebec, Sherbrooke?
Obviously, the crowds are bigger in these centers, but the need to network is more important in the regions, and more what we see. And for instance, on the North Shore, what they do more and more is hold events with more than one young chamber of commerce. It would be the one from Laval, from all the Saint-Eustache would be there. They all get together to build the network. So that's the whole point. So start local and then you grow. So, but they're very, very active, and hats off to a lot of them here on the South Shore. I mean, the Chambre de commerce et d'industrie de la Rive-Sud. Wow, they're very, very active, and they create a lot of events. The networking experience is amazing.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk about something that obviously is very present right now in Quebec, and that's the whole question on immigrants. There's a new government that wanted to reduce the levels of the numbers of immigrants coming in. We know that there's a labor shortage in Quebec. You obviously know this as well. What's going on with that? What's your position, and how do you utilize this thing happening in your advantage?
Truth is, we're given the benefit of the doubt to the government at this point. There's so many things that haven't been shown yet, things that have been said in the campaign but have not materialized yet. If you want to talk about the 18,000 folders issue that we filed, that we've seen recently, we decided not to jump on that file at this point because there's so many unknowns at this point. Obviously, we need more immigrants. We have to make sure that they're well integrated within our economy. So the new government wants to focus on the second part of it, of really making sure that they're well integrated, that they learn French, which is fine by me. It makes a whole lot of sense. Now, I understand on the social side of things, it's a big issue to just take 18,000 files and destroy them. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people can talk about it. I don't think it would be our role as the young chambers to really talk about social issue on that front. But on the economic side of things, we have a lot of questions, because if we don't get these 18,000 people, where do we get the workers that are needed?
You have people that are raising these concerns that we need working hands?
I have young entrepreneurs who are on that list.
Okay.
Too. So what do? Do they continue with their business in Quebec, or do they just pack up and leave, or what's the deal? So there's a lot of questions to be raised at that point. Obviously, uncertainty is always a big issue for
and it's mostly hitting the regions, right?
Yes.
But that's a whole other challenge in itself. Even if you bring the immigrant, how do you convince him that, or her, here, go to the regions, we need you there, rather than the big city that everybody dreams of coming to, right?
So by the time you get this podcast rolling, we might have our big study out publicly. So I don't want to talk too much about it, but we're looking on this particular file, and 84% of all immigrants choose to stay in the Montreal region. And if you add Quebec City, you're closer to 90% of all the immigrants in these two little regions. We have a program ourselves to bring young entrepreneurs from the diversity outside of these two centers. It takes time. You have to make sure that they feel at home over there. So slowly, whenever there's a community that is starting to grow somewhere, usually you'll see that more people from that community will join that region. It's a very, very slow process.
Yeah, because it's not only about your jobs, and it's not only about entrepreneurship and creating the opportunity. There's a lot of social factors as well.
Absolutely. So what do you do when you're done work? What does your wife do or your husband do when you're at work? Mm-hmm. So what about the kids? Will they feel at home? Will they feel love? Will they feel like they're integrated within the society where they live? These are all big questions, and we need to make sure that these people feel at home.
How do you do that?
That's a very good question. I think it's all about I don't know how to say that in English, but vraiment l'offre de service.
Yeah.
It's how do you accompany these people from A to Z? At this stage, I would say that in Quebec, we don't have a model where
Supply management.
sort of, yeah. We don't have that accompaniment for these people starting from scratch. And hey, let's go to Drummondville. Let's go to a rural area. Let's see how you integrate and see what job is offered for you there. How can you live there?
I don't think they have that time to waste. Basically, they're coming here. They're thinking of their kids. They're okay. Let's get moving. I need a job. They need to get down to the nitty-gritty, you know?
Yes, and if it's a need collectively to make sure that we bring diversity outside of the big centers, we need to create one program, one single window for them to apply there, and that they get the experience and they can actually choose to go live somewhere else rather than just like, I just arrived here in Montreal, I need to find a job right away. I need to take care of my wife, my kids, so I'm going to stick with the two people I know in Montreal. That's where I'm going to stay for the rest of my life. So we need to make sure that from the moment they arrive, we tell them, okay, so these are job openings that you can apply to. We can help you get there. We can help you find a place to live. We can show you around, see if you like the area.
See, what I never understood, and this was at our level, right? I mean, I have so many colleagues that worked at the immigration department, and they put in place a brand new system in August or September that would track immigrants based on obviously their qualifications, and match them with available opportunities. And I always felt that's how it was. And yet you bring in people from the Maghreb, like the North African region, who are engineers, doctors, and such. And obviously you bring them in because of the language factor. And we're not dumb. We understand what's going on here. And yet they come here and they have the highest unemployment rate in these communities. Like we're talking about over 20% here. Moroccan
women that are here in Montreal are usually more educated than most Quebecers in general. Sure. But their unemployment levels are way higher.
How does that happen? How do you bring people in that are super qualified with the idea that, look, we have the available jobs, we have the opportunities, come in, and they're just doing nothing? Well, I don't want to say they're not doing nothing. I mean, they're working. It's just that many of them aren't happy with what they're doing. And I've met a lot of them that are dissatisfied. And some of them, it's also a question of pride. They're like, listen, man, I spent my whole life becoming an engineer or a doctor. I don't have time to start over. I have a family. I came here for a better life. And they're just on unemployment, sitting there. And it's sad to see.
It is. And it's a waste. It's both for the individual, but collectively as well. I mean, the story that we've heard 1,000 times about a doctor driving a cab in Montreal.
Yeah.
This is a total waste for everyone. We need more doctors for sure. We could find better jobs for them. But
why do you think that's happening, though? I mean, this is obviously at a government level. I never understood this. And this was at our level. I mean, I spent 11 years in politics managing immigration files. I never understood why this was happening.
I think it's the paradigm in which we're working. We're sitting, and I say we're, but the government is sitting, looking at what are the needs of the government, and then to say, hey, we have needs in terms of people qualify for X, Y, and Z. And by the way, you fit into the program that we want to put you in there, rather than looking at it the other way around. So, hey, you just arrived here. So what's your experience? What would you like to do in the future? What kind of quality of life you're looking for? And how can we help you get there? We're always looking from the point of view of the government or ourselves, instead of looking at how can we make sure that this person feels at home and can really contribute to the economy. So we need to switch that around and really look at what these people need to succeed, rather than saying, okay, this is what we're offering. Come if you need something.
Yeah.
So
are these issues that come to you guys?
I hear that a lot, and we do our own program, as I said, for entrepreneurs, trying to bring them elsewhere. What we do usually is we look at their profile, what they're good at, what they've been working on for the past few years. We match them with local businesses in, like we did Granby recently. We're gonna do La Chute soon, so that we can find a link between them and see, like, okay, this is what you want to do. Well, here's an opportunity. And by the way, it's not only that, but here's what's happening in terms of the social life in Granby, what you can do. Did you know that there's 121 different communities living in Granby? It's one of the biggest place for immigration in Quebec is actually Granby. So I didn't know that like before I went there. So the what we're doing is really trying to match that, making sure that it's a perfect match, not from our perspective, but from their perspective.
Tell me something. Do you guys, what's your scope? I mean, and I'm probably guessing it's a mix of everything, but do you focus a lot more on promoting entrepreneurship or dealing with companies that want to expand and, like someone that's an employee, for example? Can he be part of this chamber of commerce, or do you only deal with entrepreneurs, business owners?
It's that's a good question. I'd say our focus is more on entrepreneurs, but young adults who have any ambition, they want to try to network and get to know other people. And so we do get, I would say it's almost 50-50.
Okay.
In the sense that our mission is more focused on entrepreneurs, making sure that we give them all the tools necessary to network to grow their business. But obviously there's a whole lot of people who are young professionals, or they want to be young professionals in the business, and they want to meet someone in particular. So that's what we do.
How do you see the landscape in Quebec, like economically? There's a lot of stuff transferring to Toronto that we know. It's been happening for years. Why do you think these things are happening?
I don't think there's one thing in particular that makes it happen. Obviously, when you're young and you're ambitious, the bigger city, it seems like there are more opportunities at that point, which can be true in some circumstances, not always. What we've seen, though, in Quebec in the past few years is the level of ambition in terms of entrepreneurship went really skyrocketed in the past few years. So that's good news. What's not so good in terms of news is the fact that the number of startups has decreased in terms of capita in Quebec.
Why?
Not sure. That's a pretty good question that we should be looking into. So that is one big issue. I mean, if you have a lot of people who want to start their own business, but they actually don't, we need to look into it, see what can be done at that point. Because obviously, we talked about labor shortage, but the other thing that's coming a lot is a big change in the business models in general. You're no longer going to be all located in Brossard or on the North Shore whatsoever. You can work from home from many different places and still have your own business.
Yeah.
Whether you live here in Brossard or you live in a small rural area of 500 people.
It's true now that the technological advance, I mean, you can pretty much do anything you want from wherever you want.
That's right.
But how is that affecting the market, though? Because you have businesses that still require labor, right? So when you have someone that says, look, I want something that allows me to work from home, or I have a family, or something more flexible. Meanwhile, you have a business that requires these hands to work. And we see this change happening.
Yeah.
It's been happening for a while now.
It's been happening for a while now. Look at big giant businesses like Nike.
Yeah.
What is Nike to you as a business? What are they selling?
Well, they're a sporting and clothing company, but aside from that, I mean, Nike, it's a lifestyle, right? They're selling the idea.
Exactly, because if you look at their numbers, if you look at their annual report, I think about 80% of all the money they do is only on the branding of products. They don't even, it's not on the product. They're not making money on the product. It's really on the branding of it. So all the products they move it elsewhere, or places where they can find the right people to do the job, and all the marketing is done elsewhere. So they're really splitting the way they're doing business, and that's one thing to take into consideration. Now, I'm not saying we should put all these jobs like in another country whatsoever. I'm saying that we need to look and make sure that if you're going to start a business, perhaps if you need someone that's very, very strong in terms of IT, that person might live in Sherbrooke, but maybe you want to keep working here on the South Shore of Montreal, and maybe you'll have a business dev person living in the North Shore and working for you.
Yeah.
So the way you see it should not be locked in one geographical area. You need to expand beyond this, and maybe you'll have a partner who's just as interested in the same business as you, but he's located in the United States, in Europe, and then you can build your business together as partners.
Tell me something, because I've noticed that the landscape is changing a lot in Quebec. There's this huge hub of high-tech companies coming in. Why is Montreal such an attractive city for this?
We've attracted the right minds to come here. When I think of Yoshua Bengio in terms of artificial intelligence, who's one of the smartest guys in the world in terms of artificial intelligence. So once you have the big names coming, the ecosystem will adapt. It's okay, we have the right people in place. Now let's build on this. It's really, and on that front, hats off to the provincial government, the previous one, who saw the opportunity and worked on it, just like other governments did in terms of aerospace industries that really built Quebec economy and the pharmaceutical industry as well.
It's also a matter of attracting capital, right?
Yes, which is always an issue. It's always very, very hard. And if you look at venture capital in Quebec, 90% of it stays whether in Montreal or Quebec City. So that's where you go and get the money. Now, there's more and more fintech companies who are trying to democratize financing of businesses. It takes time, but it's shifting slowly. So maybe it won't be an issue whether you live in Brossard or Montreal or Rivière-du-Loup.
Yeah. There's an issue that came up the end of last year. I'm talking about the plan that the federal government has to create a national securities regulator. I think this was it was ongoing in the courts. I don't know, 2014, 2015, and finally the Supreme Court ruled that it's constitutional for them to do so. Huge problem coming out of Quebec. I don't know if there's any issue coming out of any other provinces, but they don't want to participate. They want to control and overlook their own market. They think that they may lose control if it's more centralized at the federal level. How do you think this is going to impact us?
Well, here's the thing. If you're an investor and you want to start a business in Canada, where do you put your business? And then if you want to expand from, let's say you decide to build in Quebec, you want to expand it to Ontario or New Brunswick, you'll have to go see another securities regulator at that point. And then the costs are lining up. So there are two things that what the federal government did. What they did was you're not forced to participate in it. So that's what made it constitutional. So Quebec can still remain and keep the model they have in place right now. So that won't be an issue going further. Do we want, as two things, are we more scared about losing control to Ottawa because it's going to be centralized? Or are we more scared that because we have different set of rules, less people are going to be interested in coming and investing here? So that's a legitimate question. I don't have an answer for that. It's really, I think, both sides make very good, valid points. It's at that point, we'll see what happens. I don't think there's going to be any huge impact in the short run on that file.
Well, there seems to be a huge wave against it, right? I know that the Montreal Chamber of Commerce is against it, and they're backed by several former finance ministers and some big CEOs. Again, I don't know if it's political or if it's strictly economical, that they think that it's better for the climate, the economical climate here in Quebec. I didn't know that they had the choice to opt out.
They do. And the thing is that there's a model in place right now. It's not perfect, but it works for Quebec. Okay. One of the big issue was that it's not all provinces who were working so hard in making sure that all the rules are in place, the right rules. So what would happen is that a company may get authorization in another province, and they could, since they were certified, they could come to Quebec and do business. But if the company wasn't good, they could come here and create big issues for our economy. So the goal was good in the sense that we should try to make sure that whatever business, wherever in Canada they do business, they are legitimate and they won't cause any big issues for the market. Now, in terms of how this should be applied, I completely understand why the IMF and the Montreal Chamber of Commerce would want to back the system that's in place right now. Because
based on what you're saying, if it's a more centralized system, I mean, a company can come in here based on the federal criteria, for example, and qualify, whereas it wouldn't otherwise.
Right.
So the question is, who has a better understanding of the market? Is it someone sitting in an office in Ottawa trying to overlook everything going on, the whole country, or professionals located specifically in Quebec that know exactly that this company will fit or won't fit in this ecosystem? So the system that was proposed, the last system that was proposed under the federal government, was a system where all the provinces would keep people who would report back to the federal government. These are the issues. This is what we're trying to cover and make sure that nothing happens. And from there, they would all the provinces would have a say in terms of what are the regulations that must be applied within Canada.
which is different from the system that works right now, which is a passport one, which means that Quebec can strike a deal with Ontario in terms of you have the same criteria as us, so whatever business do business in Ontario, they can come to Quebec without any issue. It's really the idea was really to simplify that system. It's not of really centralizing all the power in Ottawa. Actually, the power would stick within the securities regulators that are existing right now in the provinces. It's really just the mechanics of it. Do we want, as Quebecers, to keep control of our securities regulator? It's a very good question, and I think it becomes a political decision more than anything else.
What do you think? Are people coming to you with this? Is it a concern that is being talked about around?
It's we don't hear it that often, but it certainly affects more businesses that are finance related more than anything else.
Yeah.
What do I think? That's a good question. I would say that perhaps we're not there yet in the sense of what should be the right mechanics to make it happen. Obviously, we have to make sure that consumers are protected. If they deal with a company, they're going to get screwed over. How do we do it? I'm not the most qualified person to speak on that, but I can totally understand why Quebec would want to keep its own perspective on what is considered being a company that follows the rules.
Let me talk to you about something that we've been seeing for a while, and this is obviously having to do with all this innovation and the advancement that we're seeing both technologically and artificial intelligence or virtual reality. Like there's this huge hub over here, at least in Quebec, but I think in all over the world basically. So you're seeing all these new companies, all these new startups, where it's all done online. And there's a big issue right now in Quebec. And, we saw problems that arose with Uber coming in. There's questions on Airbnb, for example, and there's all these other companies. There was another company just recently that filed for bankruptcy, and it's still up in the air. We don't know what's going to happen. We're talking about Teo Taxi that tried to compete with Uber coming in, and they failed. So there's this huge shift, right, in the way business is conducted or the way business is being started. How do we make sure, like, what's the impact that this will have both like on government policy and the way that we make sure that these businesses or economically things remain like at a sustainable level?
Absolutely, that's a very, very good question, and a question that we've spent a whole lot of time thinking about. For businesses to compete within each other, it's normal, it's healthy, that's fine. The question is, how quickly can the government adapt its laws to make sure that it's a safe business environment? And that is a big issue. We need to make sure you've worked for government. You know how long it takes for a bill to pass.
But that's why I'm asking you this question, because I know for a fact that if there's one, it's not an industry, but if there's one area or that is, how can I explain it? If there's one, let's call it an industry, right? That is really behind. It is the government. I don't think they're on the ball on what's happening, and like you said before, they're more reactionary in the sense that there's this company Uber, as if it just fell from the sky, and we have to react. But the time that it takes you to react, because again you're behind on all your other means of doing things,
right?
You're creating a huge issue.
Absolutely. You're really pinpointing the issues. If you don't see it coming, then you're stuck with a bigger problem. And the longer you drag it, the bigger the problem. So how do you react more quickly? There are two things, and it really affects how democracy works. Because at one point you can decide that let's move away from laws and go more into I don't know what you call them in English, but like réglementation rather than
the regulation. Yeah.
Regulation. Sure. So that means that it's only 1 minute, so we can choose like what are going to be the rules. I think we need to make sure that we have the foundations in laws, and then the rules, you need to be able to adapt them quicker, and make sure that whenever you change them, you have a comprehensive view on what will be the impact on the other industries. I mean, the Uber file, that's it's a very good example of what not to do.
This happened, let me look back, because I remember a time where they were lobbying the members of parliament, of the National Assembly, because they wanted this to pass. So I remember sitting in a meeting with, what was his name? Guillemette, at that time was, what's his name? Jean-Nicolas or something.
I can't remember his name, sorry.
He was in charge of Uber here in Quebec. And they sat down, okay, they presented everything to us, but I think, if I'm not mistaken, early 2014, maybe 2015.
Yeah.
We're in 2018, and I still don't think that all the regulations and all the framework has been established yet.
Exactly. There was that pilot project which dragged
Jean-Nicolas Guillemette, I think.
Jean-Nicolas Guillemette. That pilot project just dragged on. But if I were a taxi business owner, a taxi driver now, I would ask myself questions a whole lot about what is the next step. And I would be worried. And I think it's the role of government to actually understand that anxiety and make sure that they fix it sooner rather than later. So hopefully,
I'm going to give you one very particular example.
Yeah.
It happened to me during the campaign in October 2018, last year. I ran into a woman whose husband was a taxi driver. He had, I think, 2 licenses. He passed away, so it came to her. She's obviously not going to run a taxi. She doesn't want to drive. She's at the age where, obviously they're retired. She wants to sell them, and the value is garbage compared to what it was because of this change. So this is a direct impact. These are people that have worked their entire lives. They've built, it's a business.
Exactly.
You're self-employed almost, right?
Yes.
To the point where when you come to take your pension, everything you've worked for, the value of what you were building is worth, I don't want to say nothing. I mean, there's still value in it, but it's brought down significantly because of these technological advances, because of innovation.
Right.
And I stand for innovation. I like Uber.
Sure.
You know what I mean? I can understand also the impact that it has. The question is, how do you find that middle ground?
Yeah, for sure. And that's when you start looking into sharing risk, because obviously, as a taxi driver, you have a part of responsibility of making sure that your investment for the future are well done. So that's one part that you can put away. Now, the role of the government is when they see that there's a big shift in the economy, you should be on top of things, making sure that, okay, so this is what's happening. These are the big shifts, the latent shifts that you don't necessarily see, but you try to see and not prevent them because you don't want to stop them, but see them in advance so you can actually try to make sure that the less people are affected negatively with it. So how do you deal with that? That's a very good question. I think the first sense is we should look back at all the laws we've built in terms of how our economic system works here in Quebec, just to make them so that we have a foundation that is rock solid, that doesn't move, and then a lot of regulations that come and can be played with just to make sure that we can adapt quickly to the system. But that's a big question. It's not something you can do in just a table corner. You have to work and take the time to actually really do that very well.
Do you have members, do you have people coming to you and telling you, look, this is what we want to do, this is the barriers that we meet, and it makes no sense? Like, how present is this in your everyday life?
It happens quite a lot, and it's when it's not because of the rules at the provincial level. It's because they follow the rules at the provincial level, but now the federal level has a different set of rules, which creates an issue for them. So the red tape is for sure a huge issue in terms of innovation. If we want to stay on top of things, we need to look back into all the red tape and try to cut some of it.
I just feel that there's so much progress to be made, and I'm thinking of another recent failure, which was the Royal Mount project. Huge development project at an area in Montreal that is, in my opinion, very ugly, just disgusting. That you could uplift it, thousands of jobs created, huge project, and it blocks down again because the city raised their hand. They're like, oh no, it's going to create traffic, so we're going to put an end. We're going to stop the project.
That's a very good point, and I'm not going to spend too much on this specific project, but like the traffic issue is not new to this project. Let's put it that way. So don't use that as a scapegoat for what's really happening, and don't use that as a tactic to block a project like that. You need to find solutions to traffic, and you need to make sure that there's economic development for that area and for Montreal in general.
And that's just one example.
Yeah.
There's so many others. I had Mary Deros on the show, and we went over how paralyzed Montreal's, I don't want to say the business core, but they were renovating. They were doing road infrastructure on St. Lawrence a number of years ago. It took a year and a half to fix a street.
Yep.
How many businesses closed, or how many businesses suffered?
Absolutely. There's we talk a lot about the ecosystem, the economic ecosystem in Quebec. There's so many things that we can do differently. We need to punch above our weight, and we're not there yet. I mean, don't get me wrong. We're doing a lot of things that are right, but in terms of moving quickly, we're not there yet, and we need to improve on that front. It's a matter of productivity for the entire province, really.
Can you play a role in that, or how does it work?
Well, my role is really into bringing that issue up and center in the minds of public decision makers. So yes, I can play a role in the sense that I can advocate for more changes, and that's what we do.
Because it would appear to me, and this is something that we've experienced firsthand. People get elected; they don't know everything.
No.
I think everybody knows that, right? They're not experts in all
Areas.
In all areas. And they count a lot on the advice and the support of the different professionals that are around, the whole spectrum of politics. It would appear to me that someone like you, or in any chamber of commerce, I don't know. Again, I don't want to open a debate on who has more pull than who, but you should be at the forefront of these things.
Absolutely, and you're right. I don't want to open a front, and what I'm telling people is that first thing, get involved, because too often people stay at home, they complain about stuff, they don't do anything about it. First step is go outside, speak about it to someone. Your local MNA, your local MP, join one of the chambers of commerce, please do, and speak about it. The more people that are talking about it, the more politicians will be aware of the issue, and the better the chances of changes in that area. And that's true for any file in politics.
Do you sit on any advisory? I mean, I don't know how these chambers of commerce work. I mean, is there a wider group, I guess it's the federation? I guess, are you members of that? Do you sit down? Is it more can they play an advisory role to public policy or to government?
So we are independent from the FCCQ, but we do have one. The president of our board is sitting on the board of the FCCQ.
Yeah.
In terms of, there are so many different files that we can bring forward to government, and we do as much as we can. But if you're going to bring 20 files, they won't remember any of them.
So you got to concentrate on the bigger ones,
yes,
on the most important ones.
Yes, and that's when you have to find a way to prioritize which file you're going to bring forward. The one you mentioned, labor shortage, it's one of our big files that's coming up. Économie collaborative, I think that has to do with Uber, Airbnb, that's one of our big files. Productivity in general will be...
What's your position on that exactly?
On which one?
On Uber and all this new innovative tech companies that come up.
So I'll be able to flip you. We've produced in 2016. We were one of the first one to create a document on collaborative economy, see what can be done, how things should be done. It's quite extensive in the sense that bottom line is that we need to move faster on many different files, and we need to consider what would be the effect on different industries. But I can go into all the details in terms of the taxi industry, in terms of other like Airbnb. They're quite busy. It's coming, and then there was an article recently in one of the newsletter I received in terms of the economy and the number of businesses that are Uber X. They're not Uber, but they're
like anti-Uber. You mean?
No, they're applying the Uber model
to
different industries. It's coming. It's coming our way. So we can either sit there and start pilot projects when things start exploding in our face, or we can start working right away on them. So
how do you think that's going to affect the more traditional business? Like, what businesses do you think are in danger? What business do you think will flourish because of these new things happening?
That's a very tough question, because I don't think it's one type of... the industry, the business that will be the most impacted will be the one who doesn't want to change, doesn't want to adapt at all. So the moment you realize that this is coming and you adapt your model, like I don't know if you know the website's Soumission Rénovation.
No.
You want to change, you have a renovation, something to do in your house, you send in an email to them with the description of what you want to do, and you'll have 3 submissions coming your way.
I'm going to edit this part out because I don't want my wife listening to this. She'll be spending.
And we have one of our members, B2B Quotes. They do the same thing, but for anything you want to do in terms of IT whatsoever. So you just send in what you want to achieve, and they'll come back to you with the 3 best options for you. So if you don't start looking into these companies and you don't start applying to be part of their network, you're falling behind.
But that was my follow-up question. So these guys are doing, this is a perfect example. Are they actually doing the renovations, or they're just giving you the prices? And because if they are doing the actual work, then obviously they have the upper hand from your guy next door that has been doing this for 50 years.
They don't. What they do is that they do all the algorithms. So you want to do something. These are the people who said that they could do these renovations.
Okay, so they reference. So you have to get into the network, kind of.
Yes, you have to be part of the algorithms.
Yeah. So there's a lot of sensitizing that has to be done.
Yes.
Your traditional handyman.
Yes.
That has no idea how these things work. That probably has a computer that he's used maybe 3 times in his whole life.
Right.
How do you reach this individual? How do you tell him, listen, man, things are changing. Look what we're doing. Come on board, and it's going to help you.
It's a good question, and it's really getting the message out there. And we get bombarded.
And can you get the message out there to them?
Not to everyone, that's for sure. If you don't get the message at one point, you should look at your numbers, your yearly reports, and you'll start seeing that something's happening. So you should wake up.
Yeah.
But for that, you need to actually look at your numbers, which is doesn't happen that often. That's what I'm realizing, that a whole lot of businesses don't necessarily look very closely at their numbers and their own business.
You offer this type of consulting like to businesses that want help in making a business plan or figuring out their numbers or investments or...
So we don't, but we can refer them to some of the people we know that we're always happy to do, but that's not part of our mission. There are so many different organizations out there to do it. We don't want to duplicate. Mm-hmm. What we can do though is put you in touch with the right person for that. So that's what we do.
Let's close it up, man. Tell me what you're focused on right now. What's in the works? What are you planning? What are you excited about? What are your challenges? Because this is new to you. When did you start?
November last year.
So you're a baby.
It is. It's still quite new for me. Obviously, we have a big event March 15th, which will be after your podcast.
Yeah.
With 750 people, we're going to talk about soft skills and jobs of the future. That's certainly a file that we want to open up. I know it's vague, but the point is that. So we're going to bring experts from different industries together, see what are the big trends, so we can have a map for the future. That's one big thing. Trade with the U.S. It's top of mind, just because there's been so much that's been said in the past few years.
Yeah, well, there's a new agreement too now, right? So
yes, but it's not ratified yet.
Okay.
There are some pressures in the United States about that. We just want to make sure that these are neighbors are 10 times bigger than us. Obviously. We need to make sure that our businesses thrive over there. Mm-hmm. So we're an exclusive on May 24th. We're going to be hosting an event here in Montreal with 50 entrepreneurs from Quebec and 50 from the United States. They're bringing together, try to do some matching at that point, and do some networking so that we can have more economic ties with the U.S. And then Europe too is certainly something, a market that we need to develop. And I mean, we signed the agreement and it's ratified, but we need to make sure that our businesses thrive over there. And they're the public markets in Europe. They're big.
Yeah,
our businesses can apply there, and there's money, there's business to be made there.
Tell me, now that you mentioned the accords there. Because there was another agreement with the Pacific, right?
Yeah.
How is that coming into play with the new NAFTA agreement, or if any at all?
The overlapping piece is all about supply management for the dairy industry.
Yeah.
So, and we've seen in the news there's some infighting on that file, which I'm not going to delve into.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we're putting Canada is at a very good spot right now where we have free market or very close to free markets with, I don't know, I think it's 90 countries, the biggest ones, we're in a very good position. Not a whole lot of country can say that they have that many economic ties.
Yeah.
So it puts us at a very good place to be a platform for all businesses to thrive everywhere. Now we need to attract businesses and start for them to start here, building their businesses out of Canada and then shipping it everywhere.
Superman. I appreciate your time. I know that you're a very busy man. I'm going to let you get back to your kid.
Thanks.
It was nice seeing you, man.
It's always nice to see you.
It was too long.
It's been too long. Let's make sure we grab coffee more
Absolutely.
often.
I'm going to come to your events now that I have more time too.
Sounds good.
Thanks, man.
Have a good one.